Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can see and hear me. Thank you so much for joining this webinar, and thank you for adjusting to the changes in our program. As you can see, I'm advertising the local Z Garage coffee. Sorry about that. We made the decision to move away from a face-to-face training day on Wednesday, even though we knew that the decision would be made that night as to what levels we would remain on. We did so largely because our wonderful caterer, who does all of that work herself, was needing to buy in the food. So we took the decision to care for her and care for her preparation, knowing that the levels could go up or down. We've also needed to just draw the webinar in a little bit. A day face-to-face with breaks and lots of interaction is one thing. 5 hours on Zoom is quite another. And so we are just focusing in on one keynote speaker, Dean Wendy, who will be leading us in a reflection on discipleship and some sort of practical tools in discipleship shortly. Dean J. Ruka, his presentation was particularly dependent on face-to-face interaction, so that was the obvious one to set aside, but we will return to that because it's a tremendous opportunity to engage with some key issues that impact on our life as disciples in this country. And Dean Jackie Patterson is sitting right next to me and will help us conclude with a reflection at the end. But I'm going to hand to Stephen Black now, who's going to help us by beginning with morning prayer. In the middle of that, I'll offer a reflection, and then we'll hand to Dean Wendy. So fantastic to see so many online. Can't actually see you, but you know what I mean. And I hope that you enjoy the morning and that you get some good learnings out of it. Bless you heaps, and thanks for being there. Loving God, may you so open my heart and open my mind that the words I speak might speak of your love, of your peace, of your hope, and of your justice. Amen. Just want to begin before offering a short reflection. I just want to begin by acknowledging that this has been a week, 10 days of great sadness for some key leaders in the life of our church. Mike and Patsy Hawke lost their daughter Sarah to a seizure just 4 weeks after their son Peter had collapsed and died unexpectedly in Melbourne. They gathered yesterday in Christchurch at St Christopher's Avonhead for Sarah's funeral, and we sent our love and our greetings. I just wanted to, I know many of you remember Mike's ministry as part of the missions board with gratitude and the number of times that he came to our diocesan synod. Just want to read you a couple of sentences from the Bishop of Christchurch, Peter Carroll, when I asked how things had gone yesterday afternoon. The service went very well. There were about 450 present, superb singing and some excellent speaking, including from Patsy and from Mike, who led quite a bit of the service with the support of Richard Eleanor. People were present from South Canterbury through to Wellington, with a very large representation from Nelson. As far as funerals go, to help us in our grief, it was excellent, but the wound of the two deaths will, I can only imagine, never completely heal. There will be a big community of love around Mike and Patsy when they return in retirement here. We will continue to keep Mike and Patsy, their daughter Elizabeth, and her husband Phil, and other members of their extended family in our prayers over the weeks and months to come. And also Archbishop Don, who tragically lost the only surviving member of his parents' generation to drowning just a few days ago. The funeral was yesterday. As you can imagine, it's hit that family and that whole East Coast community very hard. She was a very well-known senior kuia in, excuse me, in Ngāti Porou. We are intimately woven to each other, and the grief of one part is the grief of the whole body. Over the last couple of years, I've been talking a lot about the character of us as a diocesan family, as a diocesan whānau. I've spoken about three key characteristics that I hope will be woven into the very DNA of us as a community. The first is the sense of gratitude, the sense of extraordinary, almost disbelief that we can be loved this much. And out of that sense of being loved and beautifully made, we have a sense of profound gratitude, a gratitude that sustains us through all sorts of challenges and opportunities in life. That we are a people who are seeking to faithfully follow the way of Jesus, to grow in our own discipleship, and also to introduce others to the way of Jesus, so that we are discipling others. And thirdly, that we continue to be communities of faith and of transformative faith. They're places where joy and kindness and love and acceptance and non-judgment are experienced. But also that we will be salt and light and yeast, transforming the communities, the society in which we're set, with evidence of the love of God. But what I want to do today is just speak very briefly about the second dimension, that of being a disciple. A key aspect of living as a follower of Jesus is that we are progressively developing the character and also the competencies of Jesus in our life. Remember that a disciple is the one who follows a master teacher to become like that master teacher. There's that wonderful image, rabbinic image of the dust from the sandals of the rabbi flicking up over the disciple, because the disciple is walking so closely behind the rabbi, right in the very footsteps of the rabbi, that they experience that coverage of dust. I want to suggest that there are two primary areas as disciples we need to focus on. The first is a kind of inner character that where we are constantly seeking to conform ourselves to the person of Jesus and to his character. And secondly, there's a kind of external expression or reflection of the character and the competencies of Jesus. So firstly, the inner character of Christ. This is Christ-likeness, if you like, from the inside. And Paul was referring to this when he urged the Philippians, don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. And the word attitude here means to think in the same way or have the same disposition as Jesus. And Paul was encouraging these new believers to have the same attitude, thoughts, character, and internal disposition as Jesus. He just mentioned a few ways that you could do that, or that they could do that we could do that, by being like-minded, by not looking out for our own interests, by caring for the interest of others, and by considering others more important than ourselves. All of these are attitudes reflected in the life of Jesus. So what are the character qualities of Jesus? Well, we probably can't find a better list than that which we find in Galatians chapter 5. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are called the fruit of the Spirit. And since Jesus too had the Spirit, he perfectly lived them out. He expressed ultimate love and joy. He exemplified peace and grace and patience. He modelled kindness to the forgotten, goodness to the wayward, faithfulness to the faltering, and gentleness and self-control, even in the most difficult of circumstances. Even the cleansing of the temple was a demonstration not of unbridled anger or power, but of righteous indignation and dramatic response. A disciple is growing in these areas of character, learning day by day to let the Spirit of God control them, change them, and lead them. We're not who we used to be. Are we perfect? Certainly not. I'm not. Not even close. But are we making progress? I hope so. The second aspect then is what are the core competencies of Jesus that we need to be focusing on? This is, if you like, Christ-likeness from the outside. When Jesus called his disciples to follow him, he trained them over a period of years to be like him and to carry on his work. And in order for that to successfully happen, they needed to master some certain core competencies to do that job. We can think about that when someone learns a trade. When a master electrician, for example, trains a new apprentice, their goal is to make that novice competent in every area of their job. Certain skills must be mastered in order for the novice to master their trade. Certain problems that need solved and certain pieces of knowledge that need to be learned to carry on the work. In the same way, Jesus trained his followers in certain competencies so that they could carry on the work he had begun. And as you read through the gospel, some of these competencies quickly come to the surface. For instance, Jesus trained his disciples in the Holy Scriptures. Throughout the Scriptures, throughout the Gospels, Jesus quotes the Scriptures more than 70 times. Jesus also trained his disciples how to pray. Sometimes he would pray, even pray all night, perhaps before a big decision, as he was trying to be faithful to the call that God had placed on his life, or when facing the heavy pressures of his vocation. Jesus also trained his disciples in how to communicate. He modeled storytelling. He modeled taking the simplest core of a story and making it relevant to the hearer. He used images that were familiar, that evoked a response in his hearers. So he modeled both public and personal evangelism and sent out his disciples to do the same. He trained his followers to invest their lives in others, to make disciples as he made disciples. Another competency was that he prioritized others. He prioritized relationships, choosing to invest the majority of his time, if you think about it, in a very few people, really, rather than giving all of his attention to the demands of the greater crowd, because he knew that would have optimal impact. Now, these are just a few of the competencies that Jesus developed in his disciples. True disciples of Jesus are progressively growing in these competencies by learning to carve out time for prayer, to spend time with Scripture, to intentionally build relationships with people, and to share the gospel, investing our lives in a few in order to show them how to walk with God. Those are some of the characteristics of the competencies of making disciples. What is key is that he was open to all. But he had a particular priority for those who were on the margins, those who were excluded, those subject to the judgment and the ridicule of others, those who were pushed out of the society. He began with them, began with their experience, because the health of any community is to be judged by the experience of the weakest and the most marginalized in that community. Jesus invites us into his way and invites us to follow him. That's the heart of discipleship.
Well, thank you, everyone. Great to see so many participating today. A special thank you to all of those who I know have gathered in lots of different locations this morning as teams, as friends, and as companions on this journey. Every blessing on all of you and upon those of you who are watching the recorded version of this. We're delighted to have you with us. Just want to cover off a few news items as I anticipate Dean Wendy joining me here in the office. First of all, just a big thank you to all of you for the way that each of your ministry units handled Ash Wednesday and Level 2. I've heard some of you made the difficult decision to cancel your services. Difficult but right decision. Thank you for your wisdom. Others of you who met in smaller groups were able to social distance and use all manner of different things to try and impose ashes. I was fortunate enough to join the community in the northeast, the Waikato, and have cotton bud and ash, the very artistic cross, thanks to Terry and friends. So I hope that despite the challenges, you and your communities have had the opportunity to recognise the start of Lent in some way. There are loads of resources for Lent on our website under ideas, including that little video that you saw during this morning's worship. It's ours, so you can use it at your leisure and discretion. Several study guides, as well as links to Sarah Park and her friends' resource leading up to Holy Week, and remembering that they have another resource in the Diocese of Auckland for the time up to Ascension. So do remember that we're going to be working on Thy Kingdom Come again this year. So keep that on your radar and begin to think about how you want to celebrate that. No doubt there'll be more from Dean Wendy in the fullness of time. Ministry standards certificates. I know that many of you were eagerly anticipating receiving them in hand today, and I would have been only too delighted to have given them to you. We've had about 110 people do the quiz so far, so thank you to everyone. It takes on average 11 minutes, Survey Monkey tells me, and the average score is 91%. So that's a fantastic result. Really pleased with that. Strangely, no one ticked Anglicans loved change. Go figure. I'm not going to post those certificates out because each certificate I post costs me $1. So that's $428 on postage, which is nuts. And that's the sound of Dean Wendy arriving, so I can now go through to the final note. Those certificates will come through to you. Either I will drop them off as I go around the diocese, or I will take the opportunity to send one to each ministry unit so you can distribute them there. The last note, a number of you will be receiving, I hope, emails from Curate. A number of you are wondering what that's all about. Well, that's our new database. And it's called Curate because it's designed to care for the souls of all the people in our diocese. And it's based on the label that you can see there. It's a context database with events management, workflow management, report writing analysis, and a talent database. So it's pretty amazing and powerful. Don't be alarmed if you are getting the emails. Do be alarmed if you're not, and be in touch. It's probably a spam filter issue. If you're wondering what the background noise is here, it's Saturday, and it's clearly the very best opportunity to mow the lawns around Te Araho. Hopefully, this fine, hard-working gentleman will move away quickly. We're now ready to welcome Dean Wendy, who has arrived here in the office. But I want to give you just a couple of minutes. If you need to get up and grab anything, let's pause for just 2 minutes. We can get set up here and you can get comfortable there before we listen to more on discipleship.
Kia ora whanau. Stephen assures me that you can see my beautiful face. I can't see me, so that's maybe a good thing as well. Good morning and welcome to you. I think that overnight Archbishop Philip was sneaking a look at my slides, because he's pretty much talked all about what I was going to talk about. So for much of my conversation, this is a reiteration of some of the things that he said, which is probably a good thing, in that it shows you that as a leadership team, we're speaking from the same songbook. So I'm just going to go through my slides. I want to be able to give you a personal experience of my walk with discipleship, because I think it's really important for us as we wander through this journey is to, yes, I can give you a very academic talk about what discipleship is, the models that there are, but actually it's until we engage with it one-to-one in our own life, in our own journey, and what it means for us as the people of God in this diocese, that I'm hoping that will make more sense to you. So as we go through, let's go through and flick onto the next slide. Thank you, Mr. Assistance. Oh, discipleship. For what it's worth, again, I'm just giving you my experience, okay? And I haven't been particularly good at this in the beginning, but when I thought back to how I was discipled, I was blessed in that when I came to faith in a small rural church, remember, right in the outback of the Pohongina Valley, tiny little country church. The first thing we did the first Sunday after we went to church in this tiny little country church, there's maybe 15 people that were in that church, was the minister and his wife gathered 4 other people in our house every week for a Bible study, so that we could be discipled as new Christians into understanding what it meant for us, how to read the Bible, what it meant for our lives, all of those things. And that grew to a house group of 8 to 10 people. And then they taught us how to do mission and how to grow our church, all of those things. So I was really well discipled, but when I went into the church, actually I wasn't taught how to disciple other people. So I'm giving you my experience, and that's for what it's worth. Let me see. Next. Okay. So I want to go back to our diocesan values and strategies, and why should we bother? Because I think if you think about how we are moving forward as a diocese, I want to share some of our vision that we have as a senior leadership team. Why these strategies? Why now? What are we trying to achieve? Well, I think it would be fair to say that God's moving in our diocese. It's really clear to see that I've come here as a response to God's movement and God's call on my life, and not just my life, but my family's life. It's clear that Archbishop Philip has a real sense of purpose as he's leading us onwards to this new way of being, around a fresh sense of call to ministry. And so these 3 components of being grateful, having a grateful heart, being focused on discipleship, and transforming communities, it gives us something to look at. And when we look at one of the models of discipleship, the 3DM or the Good Soil Collective, or any of the models that I'm going to talk about, actually all of them have at their heart a way of looking up to God, giving thanks to God, looking at our own relationship, who are we working alongside, but also because of that relationship, who then are we impacting? So looking at transforming communities. So these 3 components that we've focused on as a diocese seem really natural as we work forward. We all need to be held accountable to a vision or to something. So rather than just every year we're going to do the same old, why not be held accountable to this way of being? So tell me, what are you doing around our strategies? How are you doing ministry? And that's the conversation that perhaps we're going to have with you as senior leaders when we come out and when Archbishop Philip comes and visits, or when Stephen comes and hangs out with you, or your archdeacons come out and hang out with you. What are you doing around these three components? So you'll notice that the diocesan Lenten study that we're offering is around gratitude, because we really do want people to be grateful to God, to understand God's love for us as his people, and how out of that love we can then share that love with the people around us. So that's why, and that's why we do what we do. Okay, let's see next. Okay. So I want to go back to, I like to think that everything that I do has some principles behind it, and that's where I think Bishop Philip was looking at my slides. I want you to go back to your first love. I'm reminded over and over again as leaders of churches or as people of faith, how we can often forget our first love. And that is, of course, Jesus, and what it is that he did in his death on the cross for us, and what it is that he offers us in that relationship, and just how much God's love for us was in giving us his son in that very fragile babe at Christmas. And so for me, I am often, I like to take myself back to that first love, to remember and to not forget and not take it for granted, because I wonder sometimes as I look out upon God's people if they've forgotten that first love, and if that was what they remembered, then that was what they acted out of, then perhaps we would have a different response to our relationship, not just with each other, but with our world. I'm reminded that all we do is through an act of prayer. So that relationship becomes cold if we don't have a life of prayer, which builds up a strong relationship with that first love. So what's your prayer life like? I'm constantly reminded of, I used to feel really guilty because for those of you who know me, I'm not a sit and be quiet person. I tend to have a lot in my day, and I'm not my neighbour used to do this. I have a quiet time, she would say to me, and I'm not sure what a quiet time would look like in my life. But I pray constantly throughout the day. And as I think of people, as they come into my head throughout the day, I'm constantly praying for people. And so I can really assure people that I hold them in my prayers. So I just want to check in with you what your prayer life is like, and who do you pray with, and who are you praying openly with? Because actually, as people of God, we should be praying with each other, and we shouldn't be whakama in praying with one another. In fact, I met a parishioner in Chartwell the other day as I was going through the main street. Man, she looks so sad. And she's just, her life is just so sad at the moment. Her husband's really unwell and there's nothing she can do about it. And she says, look, I can't even pray. And I said, mate, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to pray on your behalf. And I said, there's this part in Romans where it says, and the Spirit groans in prayer. And I said, that's God praying on your behalf. So don't stress it. If you can't pray, that's my role. I'll pray for you. So, and then right there in the middle of the opening to Chartwell, I prayed for her. Now, I can only do that because I have a first love. And I can see her desire and I can see her need. And I'm not afraid of what other people think about me because I don't care. I don't care what they think. So what's your prayer life like? And when was the last time you prayed for somebody in distress? And who are you praying with? So spiritual disciplines. I am useless at this. And I'm the dean of the cathedral. I have to be there at church on a Sunday and I have to pray. I get that. But I used to, I could never do the whole morning prayer thing because, again, I'm not a very disciplined person. However, when you work with somebody like Bishop Justin, you become really good at it. I'm just saying. And then you start to see the benefits of what a spiritual discipline does for you. And so I want to say to you, at 9 o'clock every morning, Monday to Friday, I join a team of people from across this diocese and I engage in a spiritual discipline that's really easy. And I'd love it if you could come and join me because we've got a community of prayer. Now, in this community prayer, what we're doing is we're not just hearing the word of God, we're not just praying through the day, we're not just interceding in prayer for other people, but we are building a team of disciples because we are creating a spiritual discipline across our team and across our community of Waikato Taranaki. So yes, it's about a spiritual discipline. Yes, I am making myself turn up as often as I can because it is beneficial for my spiritual life. But it's also committing to Christine Hunn, who lives in Taumarunui. It's committing to Pip Harrison. It's committing to Vation. All of these people who live in isolated parts of our diocese. Actually, I love the fact that I get to see your faces every morning. So I invite you to join me on a Monday to Friday, easy as spiritual discipline. All you need to do is go online and click on that link. Hey, Stephen's made it so easy for us. And on a Sunday night, as often as I can, I click in with Archbishop Philip and Belinda in their home, and I join with them as a spiritual discipline to pray night prayer together. Now, it's not a long period of time, but it is creating a strengthening in our relationship to one another, but it's also helping me become a better disciple. I am intentional about this, and I want to ask you, what's your intentionality? Because I am easily swayed by some things, a bit of bling here, a bit of bling there, whatever. But I choose to be intentional about the life that I lead. And so I'm able to hold myself accountable to that intentionality. I know that without forming disciples, this church will decline further. Because we have to be growing other disciples. We have to be building disciples who can make disciples, because we know that if we do not make disciples who can make disciples, then the fire in our church will go out and other churches will go and do that on God's behalf, and the Anglican tradition will die. And I think that the Anglican tradition is a valuable tradition for God's kingdom. So I choose to be intentional about growing the Anglican Church. And I just see discipleship as a key way of doing that. Authentic leadership. If you are here, there are 68 participants, and I'm sure there's more than 68 people in the room. We are leaders in this church. So I'm asking you, who are you discipling? So who are you discipling? I know clearly the 5 leaders that I am discipling. So I want you to stop and think about the 5 people that you are responsible for discipling. Bishop Justin used to do this to us in our staff meetings, and he used to make us name them. Oh man, I hated that. But
Works though.
it works. Guess what? Who are you discipling? And it's you too, Archbishop Philip. Who are you discipling? Because all of us have to be discipling people. Growing people as disciples. It's a sticky question, isn't it? It's very uncomfortable. So make that list and hold yourself accountable. I've been reflecting on people who like to do church, but they don't like to be church. See, Stephen's thinking about that too. Okay, so doing church is about coming on a Sunday and doing it very well. But actually, what does it mean to be church? So I'm interested in people who are interested in being church. So just let that one thing sit with you for a while. So what do you believe? Do you believe that Christ is your first love and that first love is strong enough to change the world? Do you believe that the story of God in your life has transformed your life? You see, because there's a difference between inviting people to church or inviting people into the story of God. Because we just used to think it's important to invite people to church and somehow they're going to magically get it. And they're going to be transformed by, I don't know, maybe it's my magnificent preaching, or I doubt it, or maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's the magnificent welcome they're going to get at the door. But you see, I think it's the power of the story of God that transforms people's lives, because I know that is what transformed my life. So I think the invitation is to invite people into the story of God, because we've got nothing else to offer people than that transformational story. So I want you to think about those 2 questions and how good are you at inviting people into the story of God? Are you loving this so far? I hope so. Yes. Stephen's enjoying. Loving it. And see, again, this is where, Bishop Philip, you've stolen my thunder. Jesus as a model. He hung out with his mates. So who are you hanging out with? And he was, and again, very particular, he hung at the 3, the 12, the 72, and the thousands. Remember, he did ministry to the thousands. He fed the 5,000s, the 4,000s. The crowds were always there. Yes, that's true. But actually, he was really intimate with the 3. And then he had the 12 who followed him around and he taught to. And then there were the 72 that he sent out. So I'm really clear that I have a particular model of, there's the 3 or the 5 that I'm working with, that I'm working particularly intimately with. And then there's the 12. And so the 12 might be your vestry, might be your ministry team, might be your lay ministry team. And the 72 might be your parish, your congregation. Do you see what I mean? And the thousands might be the diocese. I don't know. If you're Archbishop, it could be the diocese, it could be the province. Do you see what I mean? You've got to see what's your sphere of influence. Everything is around food. If you come to my house, and you're always welcome at my house, everything is around food, because Jesus did everything around food. You know, can I come to your house? Nicodemus, I'm coming to your place for dinner. I don't know, you got to eat. See, that's the thing is, you've got to think about what you naturally have to do. You've got to eat. So why not eat with your mates? Because it's a natural thing to do. Share your hospitality. And I like that offer of, see, the Māori concept of manaakitanga is that one step further. So it's not just a cup of tea and a cold biscuit, which can be a little bit, you know, but it's that little bit extra. So, you know, maybe if you've only got a biscuit, that's fine. But it's the generosity that you offer it with, eh? Cup of tea, biscuit, sit down in the sun, enjoy the time together. If you've got a piece of fruit, you know, throw some ice in the water. It's just going that little bit of extra mile so that people know that you value your time spent with them. What I've added down below is this idea of Jesus as he hangs out with his mates, and it's this journey of on the move. And I've thought a lot about this in my ministry, as I'm always on the move. I don't like to sit still. I don't like to stay in one place very long. My husband hates it, but don't, you know, whatever. Anyway, I just think that if you're open to the ear of Jesus, you've got to be open to the call on your life. And it's not about staying in the same place. And I think a lot of our churches like to stay in the same place, comfortable. They like it that way. They don't want to. No, they don't want to go into places where they're uncomfortable. However, Jesus is always pushing us onto the next journey, or he's always going over to the other side. He's always looking for the next person to invite in. And you think he's just got it to this point of, oh man, he's hit the mark, and boom, next place. Got to move on. So he's always on the move. Practice. He's never on his own. So when he's doing ministry, he's always doing it alongside others. So the woman at the well is a rare occasion, really, isn't it? Usually there's people alongside him who are watching his ministry. So I like to do ministry alongside other people so they can see what I'm doing, they can learn they can learn from me. And then when we've done the ministry, I take people aside and I say, what did you notice? What did you see? What's your thoughts? Could I have done it any better? And he does that a lot as well. He's asking his disciples for reflection. What did you notice? And especially when he uses parables, because they don't get it, but he's trying to unpack that for him. It's a really good learning and teaching model. Okay. And then it's a great, because he's then helping unpack what he's just shown them, so that they then, when they don't have him, are able to do the same. Prayer. And then he goes away and he prays. And so he's staying connected to the Father. And then boom, on the move. So again, you've got to keep thinking about what's the next step that you're leading me on to, Jesus? What's the next thing you're calling us on to? Because I think one of the mistakes I've made early on in my ministry was thinking that I'd made it, grown the church, it was fabulous, got it to a specific place, and then thought I could take my foot off the pedal and I could just sit back and relax. Big mistake. Never sit back and relax in the land of the Lord, because he's always calling us on. Discipleship and leadership, because if we're in this space today, we're all leaders of one sort or another. So again, I think it's good to understand what are the principles that drive you as a leader. I've shared some of mine, but it'd be good for you in reflection this afternoon to think, what are the principles that drive me? What can I feel comfortable with? Intentionality. How intentional are you? Because again, I'm asking you to be self-reflective. So who's your community? I've created a community up at the cathedral, and I've got a community online again at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's a community that I'm a part of. But who are you sharing your life with? Who's your community? How are you deepening your life with Jesus at the center? So I do that a lot with podcasts. I do it a lot with YouTube clips. I do it a lot with prayer, conversations with people, music. That's how I do it. Reading scripture, listening to other sermons, those sorts of ways, yeah. Learning to teach others. So I think we should all be teachers. And so I always reflect on how I teach. So again, after today, I'll seek feedback. I'll check in with people. What could I have done better? Could I have done that differently? So because again, we're all trying to improve on our skills, aren't we? And I don't care what, right? I don't care what the what is, just do it. And it's like the Nike thing, just do it. Because all of us have to be doing something. We can't just sit back and say, oh, well, I'm quite happy with doing Lent the same way I've done it for the last 10 years. Because, no, that's not helpful for the church. If you look back on the last 10 years, have you got the same number of people in your pews as you had 10 years prior? Probably not. So I don't care what you're doing, you just need to do something. And again, who are you discipling? Remember, write those 5 names down. Tell me when you next see me who those 5 people are. Okay, so I'm going to share you some basic models. Now these are, I think I've got about 4 in here, and 3 of them you will find in this diocese, and they're fabulous. They're offered by fabulous people, but this is one that you could find through the booksellers. Stephen Cottrell, who I really rate as a human being and as a leader in our Anglican Church, so he's the new Archbishop of York. He wrote this book called The Emmaus, The Way of Faith, and I have a copy here. I brought it because I had done a series of Bible studies with him on Luke's Gospel, which was walking alongside the road to Emmaus, and it's a great biblical basis for discipleship, and it talks about how do you disciple people, and it's all about going on a journey with people. And so any discipleship model, which I'm going to talk about, is simply how do you go on a journey with people? How do you do life together? And it's a really easy step that you can follow with people. So you just buy the books, and as a team, you might choose to do this as a vestry. As a team, you just follow the books. So easy. And you just go on a journey together, committed to discovering what does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus. It's not hard. Now you could incorporate this into your vestry meeting. And it's all about how do you connect with people. This one, and it's got like maybe 11, 10, and it's got pictures. I like things with pictures. So I'm just saying, simple. The other thing, which is which is available to the whole communion. This one you don't even have to buy. You just go onto the Anglican communion site, and we'll have a look at it, and we'll put it on our website. And this was developed by Archbishop Justin Welby. Now he's another Anglican I rate. I know he happens to be the Archbishop of Canterbury, so I figure he's probably smart at this. But a Jesus-shaped life, Anglican discipleship. So again, this is a free resource that you can download. You can go through with your Bible study group, your vestry, your ministry group, and it just looks at how do you grow disciples. And it's free. And I really like that one. 3DM, Good Soil Collective. So Mike Breen is an English guy, and he created this model, and it is a model. What we've done here in New Zealand is we've taken the 3DM model of discipleship, and we've created a Kiwi context to it, which is really helpful, called the Good Soil Collective. It's about small groups working together, and we go on a learning journey. And I've been, I don't know in how many small groups doing this. And the thing that I've really enjoyed about the Good Soil Collective, or going on the 3DM journey, is it gives you a combined language. So you sort of got to learn the lingo, but it's not hard. And it talks about an up, an out, and an inward journey. So the up is, how do you look to God? The inward is, how do you work on your heart? And the outward is, how do you work on your outside journey, right? So, and again, it's a learning circle which became second nature. So together you meet every fortnight, you have a conversation, you enter into a commitment where you gather around food and you explore the Word of God, but you explore and share each other's lives. And out of that, you learn about how you're deepening your discipleship life. And then you hold each other accountable to changing your life so that you're growing in your faith. The two good things that I loved about it was they talked about people of peace. So I'm going to talk about people of peace and Sabbath. So people of peace is, how do you find people who are similar to you? Okay, because when I go into a new congregation, so say my entry into the cathedral, which wasn't probably really ideal because I closed it 5 weeks after coming in, COVID, yay. But I was looking for people of peace. So people of peace are people who genuinely move towards you. They want to get to know you. They're interested in you as a person, even as subtle as smiling at you. They are interested in you as a person. They offer you help. You say to them, we're looking for somebody to come and be a welcomer. And they put their hand up and they say, hey, we'll give it a go. I see them as people of peace. And often, actually, new people in congregations are people of peace because they're looking for ways to engage. So it's really interesting that the people of peace that I'm finding in the cathedral congregation tend to be those of a newer, they haven't been in the congregation for very long. So people of peace is a great way of connecting, finding support for the things that you want to do, especially around mission. 3DM, there's nothing that we can't do in the Lord's name. We know that, for the good of God, he'll support us and do all that sort of stuff. However, we have to be responsible in our Sabbath. Like we can't go working non-stop, even if that's what we look like. So I work really hard, but I have to have Sabbath. I have to be able to find Sabbath in my life in order to reconnect with God. I have to find rest. He said there were 6 days, and then the 7th we had to find rest so that we could spend with him. So just again, that as disciples, it's really important for us to find Sabbath. And that's what I loved about the Good Soil Collective anyway, because otherwise we can think that it's all about serving, killing ourselves for God. No, it's not. It's not. It's about Sabbath and resting and making sure that we are modeling good ministry. Yeah. So I've put the links on down the bottom, but the Good Soil Collective, Lance is down in the south, and I'm up in the north. Paul Weeding has also done it. Heather Major has done it. Rosie Dell up in Te Kaupata has done it. And so we're all great supporters. And so if you're interested in joining a learning community or learning more about it, we'd love to hear from you. This is the learning cycle, which I've just taken off the web. So that's the sort of thing you would go through every time you met. So you observe an encounter with God. Wonder what happened there. And then you reflect on it, and then you would discuss it with the group. So actually over time, you get really good at this and really good at being vulnerable with other people and saying, look, I don't understand what God's doing in my life. He's driving me nuts, or these people are driving me nuts. And then together you help make a plan. It's not about solving your issues, but it's actually about other people contributing. They help you make the plan. And then together you partner to improve that situation, and they hold you accountable. And then you go out and you act upon it. And then the next time you come back, they hold you accountable. So intentionality is at the heart of this learning circle. Casio, I was sent on Casio when I was a curate in Levin. Casio was really strong in the Wellington diocese at the time. It's a 3-day intensive. You go away, and it was a discipleship movement where you do life together. You deepen your knowledge of who God is and what it is that is expected of you. I had found that as a minister at the time, actually, I knew all this stuff, but I watched lay people who were on the 3-day intensive. It was transformational for them. So I think this is a movement for lay people to help them deepen their discipleship journey. So we offer it here in the diocese once a year, and it is amazing. I really rate this because it offers them an opportunity to think theologically and to reflect on what they're doing and to find Jesus solutions to the problems. I did some research, postgraduate research, and it showed that this Casio gave people the encouragement to speak about their faith. Now, Christine Hun, she's one of the directors in the diocese. Wendy Tyrrell here in this part of the diocese over in Nixon Street and at the cathedral. Wendy has a license to the cathedral, and I'm blessed to have her in my team. So if you want to know about Casio, I think it's amazing, and it makes a big difference in people's lives. Seriously, for lay people, to give them a new sense of what God has for them, it's a winner. Education for ministry. I know up this end of the diocese, Liz Lightfoot runs a program. Now, I think it's a 4-year program. Yeah, 4-year program. And it includes New Zealand content. It is amazing because, again, it's about doing life together. So you go on this learning journey together. You sit over each other, you sit over a kitchen table and you do this learning. Now, it's one way of learning, and it offers you an opportunity to go on a 4-year journey. Now, you might think to yourself, oh, do I need a 4-year journey? But actually, you do, because it's great value. It teaches you all sorts of things, New Zealand history, biblical history, how to exegete the Bible, how to actually look at a text and be able to pull things out of a text, and then to be able to maybe create a sermon and to be able to contribute to the life of your parish, how to walk alongside somebody and share your faith with them. And so this is a discipling tool that you will become a better discipler of God or Jesus in. I'm just thinking, so, my mate's sitting here listening to me, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me any questions in a minute. So when you build a team as a leader, I think that culture makes a big difference. So you've got to build a culture that is around discipleship. So you disciple everybody. I try really hard to disciple my ministry team. So it means I've got to spend time with them. So actually meeting with them is really important. Spend time with your vestry, again, around food, really great. We've started meeting over dinner, and we're seeing real benefits of that. Vision casting, it's really important to have a vision. For us as a diocese, we've got a vision and we're sticking to that. We're holding ourselves accountable, especially over the next 3 years. Clear communication. Now, over and over again, you're going to hear us saying over and over again, gratitude, discipleship, transforming communities, over and over again, so that you understand that we're absolutely committed to this vision for our diocese. We're committed to being a people of gratitude, growing disciples, learning to transform our communities, understanding that we're not always going to get it right, and that's where we have to be vulnerable with each other. Actually, we're not always going to get it right. We might make mistakes. None of us are perfect, but we're going to give it our best shot. And authenticity, what you see is what you get with all of us, eh? And this whole idea is, as we do life together, we do it out of generous hospitality. We're building trust all the time. And that as a team, we're in it 100%. That's me.
That's it.
That's it, as good as it gets. Got any questions?
I have got questions. I'm also conscious, because I've been receiving texts in the background, that there has been some chat and there may be some questions in there. So the first one, thank you, Sue Burns, is regarding some of the resources that Wendy's been referring to. Any resource that Wendy has talked about in this presentation, I'll make available on the website under Bishop's Training Days, and probably on the Ideas and Resources page under Discipleship as well. Where I can access the PDFs directly, I'll upload those. Otherwise, it'll be a redirect to ensure that you don't miss anything. There are loads of resources out there. There are so many out there that you can feel a bit overwhelmed. That's the gift of listening to Dean Wendy and hearing what her experience has been and where there have been some wins. If you've got any questions for Wendy, I encourage you to raise your virtual hand or throw something in the text box or submit a question, whichever is going to work best for you. While you're gathering your questions together, I just want to add one thing about EFM. Don't know, but some of you may recall the former educator in Dunedin Diocese, a fellow named Alec Clark. He was the educator there for about 18 or 20 years.
Big time.
Huge commitment to that diocese. Every time, in every church meeting I was involved with him, there was a new idea that would come up. And in the background, Alec would very quietly and humbly say, just like EFM, it's one of those programs that captured all the great discipleship practices and put it into one, and that's why it's 3 to 4 years long. We've got a really proud history, many of you will be aware of, in this diocese, which I believe brought EFM into the country. And you've heard me tell this story. I remember sitting on my mum's knee 40 years ago in the parish of Holy Trinity, Stratford, when she did EFM. So we're continuing to support it. We'd love to see more people engage. We've got a number of people who are EFM mentors who can deliver this. And if we get more interest, we will certainly support with funding. Right, we have questions here.
I see Stephen Bright, yes, $52. I was feeling particularly wealthy at the time when I bought it, Stephen. So I'm just saying I'm really happy to lend you the resources that I have, and I'm sure that Stephen Cottrell won't mind if you photocopy them. I absolutely believe, and there's some copies at Bishop's office as well. So we're happy to really share what we have, and I know he won't mind if you share them around. All right.
And also just on the EFM note, we're very blessed to have Valda Macbeth as the National Coordinator for EFM. She's based in New Plymouth and she works tirelessly for that organisation to promote it and to encourage a closer relationship with God. So thank you, Valda, and to your team and to our own coordinators and mentors across the diocese for the invaluable contribution that you make to discipleship. It's really significant. I'm just going to have a quick look along here to see if there are any other questions that have come up. All as well at this stage, and we've got a little bit of time. As I was listening to Wendy, I was reflecting on conversations that we had at the start of this week. We had 5 readiness for ordination interviews, and they were all very significant. And it's always a privilege to be involved in them. I was particularly struck by 2 in connection with what you've said, Wendy, and it was about understanding different aspects of God. We had one very humble gentleman who talked about his radical discovery. And he said he'd gone away on a 4 or 5 day retreat with the diocese and rediscovered his Celtic Christianity, and the symbol of God as the wild goose was enormously powerful. And what was so strong was that if you know a goose, he said, you know it will attack you. And that link to Lewis's notion of Aslan as God, he's not a tame lion, the wildness of God and the discomforting character of God is really significant. And Wendy, you'll know, has High Challenge, which is one of the really great aspects of her ministry. That's the discomforting character of God that we've got to embrace. That's what's going to trigger the kind of change and the transformation that we see in the lives of others. But at the same time, you'll hear Wendy, and again, one of our ordination candidates, talk about finding sanctuary in God and the importance of honouring that rhythm of work and Sabbath, and to know that we can be discomforted to then find relief and sanctuary is a critical part of the message we must tell ourselves as leaders in ministry and what we must share with others, because we're dealing with volunteers all of the time, and many of these volunteers work 40 to 60 hours a week, and they have family, and then they come to church after they've done a sports practice or whatever. So honouring the gift that you are making, thank you, but also enabling you to be both discomforted and find your own sanctuary is the tension that we live in. All right, we've got another question in here. Are we likely to have a Good Soil Collective learning community in our diocese again? Thank you, Rosie Dell. I would describe that as a leading question. As Wendy has said, absolutely. We would love to have a learning community in the diocese again. What we're looking for, pointing at all you beautiful people out there, are volunteers, people who are willing to go into that community. It may be you, or it may be the people whom you are trying to mentor. The magic list of 5 that Wendy's going to ask you about the next time she sees you. Are they the group who should be in a Good Soil Collective alongside you? Have a think about it, put it to prayer, and talk to us. Talk to Wendy and Rosie particularly, and Lance if you're in the south, about their experience.
And all of this stuff is a commitment, all of this stuff is a commitment. You've just got to find even 4 people, 3 people to do life with. And it might be people in your vestry, who really want to make a difference to your church, who really want to grow your church and to see the kingdom come in your place. And I don't know what the outcome will be of you undertaking this learning, but it will make a difference. And so, you have a look in your vestries, have a look in your ministry team. Is there 3 people? Is there 4 people that are prepared to go on a journey? Do you want something different for your parish? And can you find the people? Because we can help you find the funding for it. And then all we've got to do is find the time. And we'll help you, seriously.
Well, I can't see any other questions at this stage. So Jackie, this is a heads up to you that in a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask you to draw us together in prayer once again. While you're getting ready to do that, what I would like to do is just quickly share part of our website. So I'll stop that sharing. Oh, and there's Taranaki. Hello, Taranaki. And we'll just jump into here and onto there. So I don't think I'm yet sharing this, so let me share that screen again. Right. I get lots of inquiries about the website, for which I'm very grateful. When you are looking for things, there is one place to go to first, always. This is the homepage. If you watch me scroll down, look, here is a search bar. You can put 1 or 2 words in there and you'll be amazed by what turns up in the screen that opens.
Go back to 9 o'clock.
Yeah, there we are. This is how you get to the 9 o'clock devotions, Monday through Friday. And this is how you get to night prayer. That is a new link. You'll be aware that there was a lull in that over the summer, but night prayer has restarted. Use this link here on the right to jump online on a Sunday night. Join Bishop Philip and Belinda. Notes here for the Royal Commission to keep you up to date and also to access family resources. This is the new prayer for Lent that we've just developed. If you want access to that, it's on YouTube on our channel. If you want to talk about it, or if you have ideas for other videos, let me know. Recent news and updates. As you'll see, I try to update as regularly as I can and link everything so that you can track it down without too much drama. Because COVID, we have to be quite resilient in our practice and flexible, and that's what you're demonstrating. And this is where you'll find how we're being flexible and resilient. So do look there to see what's changing. As much as possible, I keep a track of the events on the right, and these will take you directly to them. While I'm looking at that, do keep those 2 Chrism services in Holy Week very much in the front of your mind as we approach Easter, because there will be ordinations occurring at both of them. The final time for those ordination Chrism services has not been 100% decided to my knowledge, but one of them at least will be at 6 p.m. I'm going to say that's the Waikato one.
Aye.
Okay. And Jackie may yet confirm the time of the one in Taranaki. Any resources that we have today will go on the Bishop's Training page, which is under Education, Bishop's Training Days. And it'll just be loaded here at the top so you can find it without too much drama. That's probably enough for the moment. I see there's a little chat here. Stephen, can I reiterate that you will put the resources from today in resources with clear identification? What a great question. Yeah, this is where it's going to go. I will just put it straight at the top because my discovery is that if I put it any further down, it's invisible. This is where you'll find it. This is the Bishop's Training Day page. There will also be a link under recent updates for your convenience. We're coming up to about 20 to 12, so I'm going to go and check the chat one more time. Please bear with me. It is a happy day. Thank you, Sue. And let's now go to Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Lovely to be with you today. I thought it would be helpful to finish our time together by with an opportunity to do a bit of listening to God as well as talking to God, which is a bit of a mantra with me. So I've chosen a prayer called the Beloved Prayer, which of course alludes to our gospel reading tomorrow. So I'm very aware that we're all in different places, different spaces. So what I encourage you to do is make yourself comfortable, but it is better to sit up. So, you know, it's not the time to decide to have a sleep or eat your toast or your cup of soup or whatever lunch is providing. Just make yourself comfortable and either close your eyes, you could focus on the word on the screen, or on there may be something in your environment to focus on if you're not a eye closer. So we're just going to work ourselves through with lots of silence, and at the end I invite you to join in the Lord's Prayer however you'd like that to be, and that will conclude. So let us be still in the presence of God. Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And just as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn apart and the Spirit descending like a dove on him. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, the Beloved. With you I am well pleased." So settle, relax, feel your breath, the rhythm of inhaling and exhaling gently. Become attuned to God, who is within you and all around you. Allow God's love to surround you. And then, if you wish, in your heart, pray the following words slowly. And you may like to repeat the words, allowing them to echo in your heart. And be present with Jesus in this moment. So the words are, Jesus, you are my beloved. Jesus, you are my beloved. St. Paul reminds us in Romans 9:25 that we too are beloved. We too are beloved. So let your core being soak up God's favour on you, recognizing yourself as God's beloved. And let these words settle into each cell of your being. Jesus, I am the beloved. Jesus, I am your beloved. Now, let your heart be filled with people, family, relatives, neighbours, friends, colleagues, perhaps someone you've heard about in the news or a situation. The important thing is to try not to exclude anyone. Your heart will bring to the surface the ones you need to give attention to. Then say these words, embracing all of them. Jesus, we all are beloved. Jesus, we all are beloved. And with faith and hope we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. God bless. Beloved,
Thank you, Jackie, for the gift of that centering prayer. Thank you, Bishop, for your reflections on discipleship this morning, and thank you, Wendy, for all that you have given us around your experience of discipleship and the different strategies that we can use to introduce discipleship into our lives and our communities. I'd just like to invite the Bishop the opportunity to have a final word if he would like it.
Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Stephen, for all the work that you put in, particularly at the last minute, to enable this to happen virtually like this. I'm really looking forward to an opportunity of gathering with you all in person. There's nothing quite like it, but this has certainly enabled us to respond to the changing circumstances that we find ourselves in. Let's continue to pray for the leadership of our country. There's no doubt, is there, that this has been quite exceptional as we look at the way in which our very blessed country has also been blessed with clear and appropriate leadership. It's place ourselves, as Jackie's prayer has enabled us to do, into the grace and the arms of God, and may God's blessing, the blessing of creator, redeeming, life-giving God, infuse your lives and bring you joy. God bless.